They say that in the misty mountains of the ancient East, a stubborn young traveler was searching for the highest peak in the land. To him, life was a challenge to be conquered with a clenched fist. He believed that wisdom, success, and peace could only be found at the very top, where the earth ends and there is nothing left above you. For days, he scaled sharp rock walls, ignoring the pain in his hands and the cold that froze him to the bone. Every morning, he woke up with a single obsession: to climb 1 meter higher, to stand above where he was yesterday, to rise past the clouds. After an agonizing struggle, the young man finally reached the highest peak in the land. With bloody hands and a racing heart, he looked around, expecting to feel a sense of infinite glory, but all he found was a frozen wasteland. The wind whipped against him with such violence that he could barely stand. There was no green, no shade, no water to quench his thirst. He was completely exposed, completely alone, and completely dry.
Looking down into the deep gorge below, he spotted his master. The old man wasn't climbing. He was sitting in the shelter of a small green valley, listening to the gentle murmur of a spring and scooping up water with a wooden bowl. Frustrated and shivering from the cold, the young man made his way down as best as he could. He shouted at the master, "Master, I have conquered the highest peak. I endured the wind and the ice to reach the very top. Why do you stay down here in the shadows of the gorge where you can't see anything?"
The old master looked at him with a calm that seemed heavier than the mountain itself. He pointed to the icy peak and said, "Look at that summit you are so proud of. It is majestic, yes, but it is dead. The wind wears it down, the sun burns it, and nothing can grow on its hard surface. All the water that falls on it runs off immediately. Now, look at this humble valley. It sits below, quiet and preferring the shade. But precisely because it seeks the lowest point, all the water from the mountain flows down into it. This is where the soil is fertile. This is where the trees bear fruit. This is where life chooses to find shelter. You have spent your youth trying to be the mountain that everyone admires. I prefer to be the valley that receives everything."
We live in a culture that constantly forces us to climb. You have to be at the top of your career, at the top of the social ladder, at the peak of productivity and performance. We have been taught to hate stillness, to fear rest, and to look down on humility as if it were a sign of failure. But have you ever realized how dry and lonely it feels up there? You were exhausted from resisting the wind of competition and carrying the heavy weight of everyone else's expectations. From the time we are children, we are placed in an imaginary line and told that our value is measured by how many people we can leave behind. Success has been defined as a constant climb towards some non-existent point of perfection. Reaching the top is the great commandment of our era.
Think about real mountains. The highest peaks are beautiful from a distance, but they are biological deserts. Up there, the soil is swept away by the wind. Water never stops to rest. It crashes down and rushes toward the lakes below. Plants cannot take root because the soil has no depth. The summit is hard, cold, and barren. When you apply this metaphor to your daily life, the result is chronic burnout. When you insist on being a peak, the person who always has to be right, the employee who never rests, the untouchable leader who never shows weakness, you are becoming rigid. You are isolating yourself. You are so exposed to the winds of judgment and your own high demands that your inner life begins to dry up. Why do you feel this lingering emptiness despite all your achievements? It is the thirst of the summit.
You have climbed so high that you have moved away from the fresh springs that only run through the lowlands. You feel like you have to carry the world on your shoulders, forgetting that the earth is perfectly capable of holding itself up. The stiffness of the summit is always the step right before breaking. A dry wooden branch snaps in the wind because it tries to resist it. Water, on the other hand, shapes itself around any obstacle, and that is why nothing can destroy it. Becoming a valley isn't a defeat. It's a brilliant survival strategy. It's choosing to stand in the only place where life can actually nourish you.
Ancient teachers noticed that the real power of the universe isn't like the force of a sword, but rather the gentle power of a womb. It isn't aggressive, force-driven, or invasive. It is receptive, welcoming, and embracing. They called this principle the spirit of the valley. The valley doesn't fight gravity, it rests upon it. The valley doesn't compete with the mountain to see who is taller. It simply opens its arms to the earth and becomes the very space that cradles the mountain. Imagine your mind is a container. If the cup of your awareness is filled to the brim with your own opinions, your prejudices, your ambitions, and your need to impress others, there is no room for anything new to enter. You are an impenetrable peak. You are closed to learning, closed to surprise, and closed to peace.
The spirit of the valley is the ability to empty yourself so you can hold the universe. In the lowlands, the soil is soft, deep, and fertile because it has gathered all the rich sediment that the mountain rejected out of hardness. When you have the humility to let go of being the center of attention, when you choose not to compete for temporary applause, you become a spiritual valley. You become receptive. You stop wasting your energy projecting yourself outward, and you start gathering inner wealth. The valley is timeless because it offers no resistance to storms. Strong winds pass right over its depths, battering only the exposed peaks. Deep in the valley, the air is warm and life goes on quietly. Receptivity isn't passive, it is the highest form of active strength. If you want a teacher to show you how to live with the strength of the valley, don't look for a scholar in a library. Look at the water. Water is the softest, most flexible substance in the world. It has no shape of its own. It adapts naturally to a cup, a river, or an ocean. If you squeeze it in your fist, it slips through your fingers without taking any damage. It seems harmless, weak, almost invisible. And yet, try to stop it. Water can carve through the hardest granite, tear down concrete dams, and sculpt the deepest canyons on Earth. It doesn't win through hardness, but through patience and its willingness to yield. But the greatest secret of water is its direction. It always seeks the lowest point. Why is the ocean the king of all the rivers and streams on Earth? The ancient sages had an answer so simple it almost startles us. The ocean is king because it stays below them. Think about it for a second. All the strength, all the sediment, and all the mineral wealth from thousands of miles of land eventually end up in the ocean. Why? Because the ocean had the humility to seek the lowest point on the planet. It didn't have to climb any mountain to claim its treasure. It simply stayed below, waiting with open arms, and the wealth of the world flowed down to it on its own. In our culture, we run away from the bottom. We feel that if we step aside, stay quiet in an argument, or choose not to brag about what we've done, we are weak, losers. But the physics of the universe tell us otherwise. The one who stays low is the only one who can receive. The one at the top has nowhere left to grow.
The one who stays below becomes a magnet for all the energy flowing around them.
We live in an era obsessed with things, content, and gathering more. We want to fill our homes with objects, our minds with data, and our calendars with appointments. We believe the value of life is measured by how much we can pack into it. But the wisdom of the valley invites you to look at the world through the beauty of empty space. Think of a clay pot, shaped so carefully by a craftsman. What is it used for? It holds water, keeps grains fresh, and nourishes life. But what actually holds the water? It isn't the clay edges. What makes the pot useful is the empty space inside. If the pot were just a solid block of clay, it might be a beautiful decoration, but it would be useless.
The same is true for a room. Why is a house livable? Not because of the brick and concrete walls, but because of the empty space between them that lets you walk, breathe, and live. Why does a wheel work? Because of the empty space in the center of the axle that lets it spin freely. You have spent your whole life trying to be the clay, the bricks, the solid structure. You are obsessed with your identity, your titles, and your possessions. But your true usefulness, your peace of mind, and your freedom live in your empty space. If your mind is full of yourself, your pride, your rigid plans, and past hurts, there is no room for life to happen. You are like a cup filled to the brim with dirty water. No one can pour fresh wine into it.
Practicing the emptiness of the valley means having the courage to unlearn, to clear the cup, to go to bed every night letting go of the wins and losses of the day, the offenses you felt, and the expectations of tomorrow. Emptiness isn't a lack of something, it is pure potential. When you empty yourself of the need to be somebody special, you become the open space where the whole universe can show up. Most of us listen like mountains. When someone talks to us, we aren't really listening to what they are saying. We are preparing our defense. We are looking for the winning argument to prove we are right. We are projecting our own peak onto them, trying to crush them with our judgment or our superior experience. We listen to reply, not to understand. Listening like a valley is a completely different experience. It means creating a safe space of silence around the other person.
When you act like a valley for someone else, you become essential to their soul. Not because you have all the answers or because you give them life lessons, but because you are the only place in the world where they can pour out their thoughts and fears without being judged. You become the empty space that allows them to breathe. This receptivity completely changes our daily conflicts. If someone comes to you with anger, harsh words, or complaints, and you act like a rigid mountain, their aggression will crash against you. There will be a violent impact. Words will bounce back, tension will rise, and the conflict will spiral out of control until something breaks. But what if you choose to be a valley? When you are a valley, you don't offer a hard surface for anger to hit. You receive the other person's anger gently. You listen without interrupting. You create the space for their poison to wash away in your quiet depths. Because the anger meets no resistance, it loses its strength under its own weight. By choosing not to defend yourself, you become unshakable. It's not cowardice, it's the mastery of water that absorbs the impact of a rock and keeps flowing, clear and pure. We live in a society that teaches us that yielding is a sign of weakness, that if you don't push back, shout louder, or have the last word, you are losing power. But the power of the loud voice is a fragile one. It is like glass that shatters at the first gust of wind. True emotional strength lies in the ability to bend.
In nature, what is soft and flexible always outlasts what is hard and rigid. When a tree grows old and its branches become dry and stiff, they snap easily during the first winter snow. But the young, supple bamboo bends under the weight of the snow, letting it slide off, and stands tall again without a single scratch. How many of your daily worries come from your refusal to bend? You get stiff in traffic. You get tense when things don't go exactly as planned. You harden when someone has a different opinion than yours. You are carrying so much snow on your dry branches that you are on the verge of emotional collapse. Bending isn't giving up. It is the wisdom of not slamming into a wall you cannot tear down.
If your flight is canceled, if the economy shifts, or if a partner lets you down, it has already happened. Fighting the fact won't erase it. It will only drain the energy you need to respond wisely. By saying, "This is what is happening right now, I am going to flow with it," you are choosing the low, receptive ground of the valley. You are letting the snow slide to the floor. You reclaim your freedom the very moment you stop demanding that reality be exactly what you want it to be. Stepping down from the peak of your own pride to live in the peace of the valley isn't a change that happens by magic. It is a daily practice of character. Your ego will fight it. It is wired to look for height, noise, and self-importance. The next time you're in a petty argument, whether it's about politics, sports, or how to organize the house, and you feel that heat in your chest pushing you to make the winning point, stop. Feel your ego's urge to shine and consciously choose to let it go. Say gently, "That's a good point. You might be right." Don't say it to be fake. Do it to hand the victory to them so you can keep your inner quiet. Notice how by not defending your opinion, the tension vanishes in a second and you keep your energy completely intact. Dedicate at least one conversation a day to being a valley. When you talk to your partner, your child, or a coworker, make a promise to yourself not to interrupt under any circumstances. Don't think about what you are going to say next while they are still talking. Listen to their very last word. Let their thoughts flow into your quiet depth without judging them. You'll be surprised by how, when you empty yourself, the other person begins to calm their own noise and find the clarity they were looking for simply because they had a space where they were truly heard. Spend moments of your day being entirely ordinary. Do things where you aren't looking for applause or recognition from anyone. Clean up a shared space that isn't your responsibility and make sure no one finds out it was you. Help a stranger in silence. Walk through nature without bringing your phone to record the moment. Remember the beautiful feeling of just being an observer of the world, a simple, uncarved block of wood that doesn't need labels to know its worth. In the end, the peak and the valley are parts of the same landscape. But while the mountain gets worn down by time, eventually turning into sand that falls below, the valley receives that sand and creates the fertile soil where spring flowers bloom. Life is not an agonizing climb towards some non-existent point of perfection that your mind created out of fear. Life is a river that runs down, looking for rest in the quiet depths. I am not asking you to give up on your goals or stop dreaming. I am asking you to change where you build your happiness. Don't look for the mountain peak so the world can see you. Seek the shelter of the valley so you can see the world clearly.
Stop fighting the gravity of your own humility. Let go of the masks of self-importance. Relax your shoulders, clear the cup of your mind of all the useless noise of the day, and allow yourself to go down to the place where the water is sweet and the soil is deep. You don't have to be stronger than life. You only have to be open enough to let life flow through you without obstacles. Let me know in the comments, in what part of your life have you been feeling like a dry, lonely mountain peak? And how are you going to start opening up like a valley today to let peace back in? Let's empty our cups together.
Thank you for letting me share these words with you in your quiet moment today. Subscribe if you're ready to leave behind the rush of the mountaintops and reclaim the sovereignty of being receptive. Until next time.